What's up, guys? Let's do some more SQL. So the question is customer order frequency. Here we have three tables: customers, product, and orders. And here we have the customer ID is our primary key, and so every customer ID is unique. And we have a product table which has a primary key of product ID. So every row that has a product ID, every row has a unique product ID, and we also have the price. And here we have our order ID, which is the primary key. We have a customer ID, which is a foreign key that points to the customer that made the order. A product ID, which is another foreign key, which relates to our product table, the order date, and the quantity. So we need to write a solution to report the customer ID and customer name of customers who have spent at least $100 in each month of June and July. So, sorry, I think so in both months, not just one month, and we need to return it in any order. So let's look at an example here. Here we have example customer table. We have our product table, orders table. So let's look at each of these customers. So say we have our customers and we have all of these are ones, right? And here we have these different products. So let's just put the price of the product next to each product ID. So we have 300 and we have 10 and we have 45 and let's do 2. So for this is for Jonathan. They spent $300 here and $2 here. And then let's look at 3 for Mustafa. And they spent $10 on this t-shirt and $45 on a book. And they bought another book for $45. So if we're just looking at 2020, so let's look at June. So let's look at Winston for 1. So let's put June, July, and let's count up how much money they spent in each month. So Winston spent $300 in June, and then they spent $55 in July, right? Maybe I did this wrong. No, they spent 55. Oh, they bought a quantity of 2. So we got to make sure we multiply how much our price is by 2. So that's 95. Oh, that's 90 plus 10, so that's 100. Right? And then here we have for Jonathan, they spent $600 in June. 600. And then they spent $20 in July. $20. And then looking at Mustafa, they spent $20 here, and then they spent $90 here. So that means that they spent $110 in June, and then they spent $0 in July. So this has a 05. Whatever month comes before June. May, I think. So they spent over $100 in May, but not in July. So, looking at these two tables and looking at our question, we want to find who spent over $100 in June and July of 2020, and the only person we can see is Winston. So that is our output, and that's why that makes sense. And let's talk about how we can do this. So obviously we're going to have to do some joins between our customers and orders and product table. They all have information that we need. So the first thing we could do is we could do a join between our customers and orders. And why just a regular join? Why not a left join? Well, if we have to do a left join, they probably didn't make any orders, right? We don't need every customer. We just need the customers that actually made orders. So if we have like someone here named Sam, and I don't know, they're located somewhere, and they don't have any orders in this order table, well, then they probably aren't going to be outputted, right? They spent $0, right? That's not what we're looking for. So I think an inner join would be best. We don't need to do a left join. We just need to do a regular inner join. So we can do a join there. And if we also need to do a join between our product table or our orders table. Sorry, this would be our orders. Our orders table and our product table. Well, we'll probably do a inner join again too, because we should be able to assume that every product in our orders table relates to some row in our product table. If not, then we don't really have the price. So we should just do a normal inner join just to be safe. We don't want to be multiplying by null or anything. So we'll do two inner joins between one with our customers and orders, one with our orders and product. And then we need to build a query in which we get the sum of how much someone spent in June and July. So one thing we could do is we could do a query. We could query the customers table, and we could get the customer ID and name, and then from customers, right? And then we could join it with our orders, and then we could join our orders with our product, and then we could group it, right? We could group our customers table by our customer ID, customer name, right? And then we could extract, or we could do a where statement where we're only looking at orders in June 2020, right? Just for our first table. So just our first table, we're just looking at June 2020, and we will count up how much money they spent in that month. And then we could make another table just for July 2020, right? See how much money they spent in July. And, if we have a table that has, let's say people that spent more money or spent over $100, so at least $100 in July or June 2020, we'll get a table that looks like, Winston, Jonathan, Mustafa, right? So that's 3 people. And then if we want to see who spent over or at least $100 in July 2020, then we'll just get Winston, right? And we can then join these tables, right? So if we're looking at these 2 tables, obviously we want to just get the intersection of these 2 tables. So that would just be Winston, right? So that's one way we could do it. We could do two subqueries and then join those two tables together and get our output. And another way we could do this is we could just, after we do our joins, we could just do a where statement. So let's just look at 2020, and then we could do another statement that checks, who spent at least $100 in July and June. And let's get into coding so this will make more sense to you. So let's start out with the first method I was talking about. So let's do our select statement. So let's get our customer ID, customer name, make sure to spell everything right. And then let's do a join orders on customer ID and orders dot customer ID. Double check this table. Yes. And let's join our product table on our orders dot product ID equals our product, and then let's do a where orders dot order date, and let's extract the year from it. Year from 2020, right? Yep. And let's also get the month. Our month equals, so 6. The month is 6. And then let's group it by customer ID, customers.name. And then we'll use this having statement. So after we do our grouping, we can check the sum of how much money they spent. So we can do customers, or let's do orders dot quantity times product price if they spent at least $100. So let's take a look at what this table looks like. Let's see. So yes, we have all 3 people. As we showed off in our example, all 3 people spent this much money, or spent at least $100 in June. So let's do another subquery for July. Let's say 7. And we should only see Winston here. So let's see this. Okay. So yes, we just get Winston in this. Now, we want to join these 2 tables. We want to find the intersection of who spent at least $100 in June and July, right? So we can just take this table and comment it, and we can just say select, let's call it A, and then B, name, and then we can say from, And then let's stick this in here. Call this A. And then we'll do our inner join. Join our second table. On, let's call this B. That's B. On A, customer ID equals B, customer ID. And this should give us what we're looking for. Cool, let's run this. Awesome. So this worked. Now, let's do this again, but let's write a little bit less code. Right now, this is a lot. So let's comment all this out. And we're going to talk about another way we can do this, which is instead of making two different tables, we can use our having statement a little bit more creatively. So so now we can just filter everything by 2020, and then we can say having, and as we look through every order, we can write a case statement whether that order is in June or July, right? So we could say case, and say when. We can extract this. So when it's in the month of June, then we can do this. Otherwise, we'll say it's 0. And then let's wrap this. And we can see, okay, is this sum greater than or equal to 100? So did they spend at least $100 this month? And is the sum of July, how much money they spent in July, at least $100? So let's look at this. Let's run this. Okay, cool. And this also worked. So both ways are good. I think intuitively the first way makes sense, but the second way is also cleaner. Using this having statement, you can get the sum of how much money they spent just in June and July and filter based on that. So hopefully you learned something. Thanks for watching.